All right, so you need some help putting the tips back onto your Pyraminx. In this case, we have the Keychain Pyraminx here. Now, there is something you should probably take note of before we start, and it's on these tips here. As you can see, there are two sets of ridges. On the right side, we have ridges that are a little bit higher than the ones on the left, and that is important because when you're aligning the pieces together, for example, these two here, you want to make sure that the bottom ridges are lining up with these top ridges in a way that they interlock. And if you could see there, the green piece is a little bit higher than the red piece, and you're just going to push them together. And if you make sure that the bottom ridges are lining up properly with the top ridges, you should get a really flush edge here with no overlap. Now for actually putting the tips on the Pyraminx, just grab any color. It's best if the Pyraminx is already solved and you've taken the keychain off, just to make sure that you have a flat surface to work with on every side. Just grab any color, in this case I have red, and all you're going to do is make sure that you slide the piece on underneath this yellow base here. There are little bumps on the corners of the tips here that you'll just slide underneath. And then I like to work clockwise, so I hold the base of the Pyraminx here, and I like to put my pointer finger right on the bottom of this tip to keep it nice and stable. And working clockwise, our next color is green. So again, we're going to make sure that these grooves line up. So as you're putting it on, you're going to make sure that they line up properly. And you're just going to gently push like that. Make sure they're locked in place. So again, they should be relatively flush like this. There shouldn't be any large overlapping from either one of the pieces. If there are, that does mean that you've probably misaligned those ridges inside, but that's an easy fix. You just take it off and you try again and just make sure that those ridges are lining up properly. So now we have our last color here, which is blue in this case. Now again, I like to kind of hold the base and use my thumb and pointer finger on the bottoms of these tips to keep it nice and stable as I put on this last color here. And now you have two sets of ridges to kind of make sure that you line up. So just be careful and make sure that you're lining them up properly and just gently push it into place. And now you can kind of squeeze the tips together, and there shouldn't be any large overlap or any pieces sticking out farther than one another, and you should be good to go. Your tip is on, it's fully functional. Now I would be relatively careful when it comes to trying to solve this quickly. These aren't the same high quality as some of the normal sized Pyraminxes, so just be careful when you're turning and make sure that you're not trying to turn super fast or at your top speed, because the tips or some of the other pieces may pop out or fall apart. But once you've reassembled all of the tips that you need to reassemble, you can now go ahead and take your keychain piece again and just hook it in, and you should be good to go.